Hello, friends. Ted Wilcox here again to bring you into another thrilling chapter in our continuing saga of magic, mystery, and the American century. But before we begin, here's Charlie Pulcher with a brief review of our last episode.
Last time, while Mickey followed new dangers through the Tenderloin, Whiskey returned to Hallie Baptiste's trail, only to discover time was slipping through his fingers. The abduction site offered little at first, until vigilance revealed a hidden trail of dead vegetation leading out of Joshua Norton Park. At the Choice, Hallie's last known stop, Whiskey uncovered something the police report left out. Two silent bikers sitting in the shadows for hours, watching Hallie and Jordan before following them into the night. Leather vests, scars, motorcycles, vampires. And with the clock ticking toward war, Whiskey realized he needed help he could no longer avoid. So now, with fewer than 3 days left to stop San Francisco from tearing itself apart, Whiskey turns toward the one place he least wants to go, the FBI. What happens next? We'll find out now.
This is the Mythic Chronicles. Entry 1. Crime Wave. Chapter 24. Whiskey Drops by the Office. October 25th, 1951. South of the Tenderloin, nestled between McAllister and Market Streets, sprawled the San Francisco Civic Center and Civic Center Plaza. Home to the city's largest governmental and cultural institutions, its mix of grand architecture and manicured landscapes made it the prime gathering place for any major event in the Golden City. This time, however, the birthplace of the United Nations was preparing to host not one major event, but two. While delegates from across the free world assembled in Veterans Memorial Hall and the War Memorial Opera House to sign the Treaty of Peace with Japan, the plaza outside was being transformed into the largest fall festival in West Coast history. City planners nearly rioted when a scheduling glitch landed both events on the same day. But a sudden influx of cash from wealthy donors helped smooth things over. El Corazón de Carnaval, the heart of the festival, would rival the 1915 World's Fair, dazzling every passerby with its riot of color and spectacle. Behind high-security fences, the plaza thrummed with festively decorated booths, carnival rides, tents, and street performers. Just beyond the fairgrounds, inside the Federal Building at 50 United Nations Plaza, the only thing dazzling Whiskey was a headache. Finally cleared to enter the FBI's regional field office, he made his way through the main doors, weaving past a legion of agents, staff, and visitors, flooding the not-so-quiet corridors. If the city planners were feeling the strain, the Bureau was being pulled apart at the seams. As the lead security agency, the FBI was coordinating with the Secret Service, SFPD, and the National Guard to protect the entire city. With UN delegates arriving by the day, preparations had escalated into full-blown operations. With so many high-ranking political figures in one place, intrigue would flow more freely than booze. The Hoover-led FBI would never miss a chance for intelligence gathering. Whiskey could only imagine the sheer number of bugs, surveillance devices, and undercover agents already deployed. Even in a relatively small city like San Francisco, the logistics were staggering. Add in the chaos of Carnival, and his stomach churned at the implications. Despite the frantic symphony of ringing phones, clacking typewriters, and hushed conversations in the waiting area, Whiskey's aura senses registered an unnerving calm. Bureau personnel were rigorously trained in aura control. Even the support staff had it down cold. It was eerie, being surrounded by so much frantic motion and feeling none of it. But, as always, inside Bureau walls, Whiskey kept his expression neutral while he waited. Someone had decorated the lobby for Halloween. Kitschy pumpkins, bats, and spiders were scattered across filing cabinets and side tables. A string of dancing, tuxedoed skeletons reminded him of George Baptiste. He checked his watch. "I've been thinking," Passenger mused. The corners of Whiskey's lips twitched. "That can't be good." Yes, you're oh so clever," it replied, the pulse of an eye roll vibrating through his skull. But if this Baron Samedi was at the abduction site, what was he doing there? There are laws against deities meddling in human affairs. This one practically called the cops himself. Whiskey toyed with his fedora, considering the point. He'd been thinking along similar lines since spotting that trail of dead things at the crime scene. "I'm not sure," he admitted. "But you're right. This kind of interference is unique." That thought triggered a memory. Didn't George say he was the Baron's descendant or something? Passenger mused. I suppose that could be it. They took the Baron's great-great-great-great-great-great-granddaughter, so it's personal. Whiskey shrugged. Perhaps. There's precedent for God stepping in when family's involved. Just look at any major pantheon, and you'll find countless stories. Either way, it's worth looking into. I'll ask Felix about it next time I see him. At last, the receptionist stood and scanned the room. Spotting him, she waved him inside. Whiskey was steps from the corner office meant for the lead agent when a raised voice sliced through the ambient noise, even with the door shut. 3 weeks of nothing, and now you want to do what? Passenger let out a disgusted sound. What's he doing here? Through the frosted glass, he spotted Special Agent in Charge, Jordan Crane, a lean, sharp-eyed man in his early 50s, with a hawkish nose and storm-cloud eyes that reminded Whiskey of the Marine snipers he'd known during the war. Rather than sitting behind his expensive desk, Crane stood near the window, facing the man occupying his chair. That man was Associate Director Clyde Anderson Tolson, second in command of the FBI and J. Edgar Hoover's personal protege. Tolson, a stout man with a square jaw, round nose, and receding hairline, wore a perfectly tailored, Ivy League-cut Navy Chanel suit that screamed authority. Crane, by contrast, wore a pressed but unremarkable Hart Schaffner and Marx suit in a Manhattan cut. Mused Passenger. Interesting. Crane's eyes flicked toward Whiskey for the briefest heartbeat before returning to Tolson. Whiskey held off knocking and instead triggered vigilance. Remember, sir, Crane was saying in his usual patient drawl. The initial report from this office noted the kidnappers used potent defensive magic. Tolson's smile was razor thin. Making excuses for this office's incompetence, Agent Crane? No, sir, Crane replied, his tone so measured it bordered on bored. Merely stating facts. As for the timeline, this office advised against releasing expectations to the press. If you'd like, I'd be happy to pull the duck. And pretend this isn't happening? Tolson snapped. The ransomers used the damned papers to send their demands. The nanny's blood was all over the scene. If you were halfway competent, this would have been solved by now. Defensive magic be damned. Nanny, sir, Crane corrected. Tolson blinked. What? Esmeralda Fernandez was the Franklin's nanny, sir, not a maid. And we did find her, but I don't give a damn if she was the God's damned Queen of the Nile. The fact remains, this office is failing. And now you want to pull resources from the case? Other than the faint deepening of the crow's feet at the corners of Crane's eyes, his expression remained impassive. Sir, with all due respect, Agents Freeman and Brody are my men. I know them. For them to go dark like this is highly out of character. It has shades of what happened with the Dorsey team. Something is... You keep that name out of your mouth, Tolson snapped, his voice turning cold. Jacob Dorsey was a friend, and what happened to him and his team is... He stopped himself, forcing a deep breath before continuing. It's clear you don't know as much as you think, Special Agent Crane. With communists running amok, dead cops, and Dwimmer drug rings flooding the streets, this office is already a national disgrace. And now you want to raise alarms? I won't let you make the Bureau appear foolish. Crane's eyes flicked toward Whiskey. Taking it as his cue, Whiskey knocked on the window and stepped inside. Good morning, Special Agent Crane, he said. Then, turning as if just noticing Tolson, he added with a pleasant smile, Oh, hello, Agent Tolson. It's been a while. Tolson's agitation boiled over into loathing. He shot to his feet and turned on Crane. What is that thing doing here? Crane, now standing at his full 6'2", met the glare with cool indifference. He was about to respond when another voice interjected. I believe I may offer clarification on that matter, Associate Director. Whiskey turned. Seated comfortably on the small office couch was a tall blond man in an impeccably cut, not quite navy, not quite royal blue Christian Dior suit. Mr. Mononobe was found innocent of any wrongdoing in the Marrow incident, the man said, smiling as attention shifted to him. His English was flawless, though Whiskey caught the faintest trace of a German accent. Considering your present shortage of personnel, I advised Governor Warren that his return to duty was prudent. It appears the special agent in charge has followed that advice. Crane glanced at him, then gave the smallest shrug his narrow shoulders could manage. I was unaware of any recommendation from Mr. Schultz or the governor's office, he said. But orders came down that he was to return to work yesterday, so I assigned him to a low-priority liaison case with the SFPD. Tolson frowned. Orders? Crane repeated the micro shrug. My mistake, he said, crossing to a filing cabinet. He returned with a document and handed it over. They were signed in blue ink, sir. I assumed you knew. Tolson snatched the paper and scanned it. Even from a distance, Whiskey spotted the telltale scribble at the bottom. Everyone in the bureau knew who signed orders in blue ink. Very well, Tolson muttered. Nothing in his tone suggested well. It's not my place to question the director's decision to keep an A-class as a pet. He turned toward Whiskey, eyes gleaming with malice. But if I so much as hear you've fallen back into old habits, Oni, I will sign your execution order personally. Whiskey's heart skipped. Passenger let out a low, guttural growl. Tolson had just exposed his classification in front of someone outside the bureau. If that leaked, it could get him killed. And Tolson knew that. Whiskey's knuckles popped as his hands curled into fists, the urge to crush the man into bloody pulp surging through him like a flash flood. Instead, he schooled his expression into a polite mask, his gaze moving deliberately from the red-faced Tolson to Schultz. As luck would have it, the lawyer appeared to have missed the exchange entirely. He was absorbed in dabbing at a water spot on his expensive jacket with a handkerchief. When he noticed Whiskey looking his way, he offered a polite, if somewhat smug, smile, but showed no flicker of recognition, no sign he'd heard a word. Whiskey returned the smile, then directed it at Tolson. The man met his eyes without the faintest hint of remorse. At least he didn't say more. You're looking spry, Agent Tolson, Whiskey said, omitting the man's title. Glad to see things are going so well for you, considering the last time we worked together. Tolson held the stare for a full heartbeat before making a disgusted sound and flicking the paper back at Crane. Your request is denied, Special Agent Crane. Your priority remains the Franklin case. Am I clear? Crane didn't look pleased, but he nodded. Crystal, sir. Tolson smiled. Good. You may leave. I'd like to speak with Mr. Schultz. Crane nodded and left. Whiskey turned to follow, but Schultz rose to his feet. A moment, if you please, Mr. Mononobe. Whiskey paused. Standing, Schultz's tall, powerfully built frame was even more imposing. I read your case history, he said, extending a hand. Please accept the gratitude of the governor's office. We consider ourselves fortunate to have your assistance. Whiskey blinked, surprised, then caught himself. Aware of Tolson's withering glare, he accepted the handshake. It was nothing, he said. Just doing what I can. Schultz nodded. As we all should, he replied, and the two exchanged grips. Let go, Passenger hissed. A jolt of instinctive dread rushed through Whiskey, and he yanked his hand back. If Schultz noticed, he gave no sign. He simply smiled again and turned to face Tolson. Whiskey glanced between the two. Tolson's brows shot up aggressively. What? Get out, Mononobe. Still blinking, Whiskey exited. What was that? He thought. Passenger made a low, uneasy sound. I'm not sure how, but I think he scanned you. Whiskey stopped cold and turned back toward the closed office door. Schultz and Tolson were already deep in conversation. He did what? I don't know, Kenichiro, Passenger said, pulsing a sharp, agitated shrug. But I felt him do something. Whiskey stared through the glass. As if sensing the attention, Schultz's eyes flicked toward him. He offered another pleasant, unassuming smile, then turned back to Tolson. Does he know what I am? Whiskey thought. I said I don't know. It felt like a scan, but different. I don't like this at all, Kenichiro. There's something strange about that man. Whiskey lingered in the hallway, his heart ticking like a bomb. He didn't know what was worse, the lawyer possibly knowing what he was, or passengers' reaction to the man's touch. Had Schultz heard Tolson when he tried to expose him? If so, was he looking for confirmation? And if he had confirmed it, why hadn't he said anything? A representative from the governor's office would be demanding he be taken away at gunpoint for no other reason than good publicity. Yet here Schultz was, acting as if nothing had happened. Passenger wasn't infallible, it could be wrong, and Whiskey himself hadn't felt anything strange when he'd shaken the man's hand. Whiskey let out a slow breath. The way told him where to focus. Add it to the pile of things to look into as soon as I can, he thought. For now, there's nothing I can do about it, and wasting time on worry won't get me anywhere. I have just under 60 hours before my neighborhood turns into a war zone. He could feel Passenger pulsing sulkily, but when it didn't reply, Whiskey turned and followed the hall Crane had taken. A few turns later, he found himself on the far side of the building, where, judging by the neglected feel, an overflow wing had been left to languish. 5 small offices lined the hall, each furnished with second-hand fixtures. Without pause, Crane entered the last one and took a seat behind a battered desk, gesturing for Whiskey to sit. Once settled, Whiskey leaned forward. You wanted me to see he was here. Why? Crane didn't answer right away. 3 seconds of silence passed. Then he did something Whiskey had never seen him do. He sighed. It was a simple breath, but it made the normally stoic agent look very, very tired. I believe those working for me should be properly informed, Mr. Mononobe. You can't do your job without all the facts. He paused. Why are you here? Whiskey gave a brisk summary. Hallie's ties to the Saints of Samedi, his visit to the Choice, and what the witnesses had told him. They mentioned 2 potential perps, probably vampires. Motorcycle leathers, flaming devil patch, possibly a D in the initials. I need everything in the national database on 1%ers operating in the Bay Area with a logo matching that description. Crane tapped his fingers, gaze flicking around the office before landing back on Whiskey. 1%ers? Whiskey nodded. Outlaw biker clubs. The ones that don't play by AMA rules. Crane gave a flat look. I know what the term means, but as you observed earlier, my people are at full capacity. I don't have anyone to spare for biker gang research. Surely this is something you can farm out to the SFPD. I can't, Whiskey said. I have reason to believe the SFPD is compromised. Crane raised an eyebrow. By bikers? Do you have evidence? No, Then let me be clear, Mr. Mononobe, Crane cut in. You're on this because it's low priority, low impact, something you could handle alone. Whiskey blinked. If we don't find this girl, it'll trigger an all-out gang war. It's the Saints, Agent Crane. You're aware of what they can do. Crane's expression hardened. Then why are you wasting your time here, Mr. Mononobe? Whiskey stared. There's nothing you can do? Crane sighed again. I'm afraid not. Whiskey clenched his fists. That's not good enough. Crane stood. His voice sharpened. You come in with a half-baked theory based on hunches and hearsay and expect me to do what? Halt ongoing operations that, quite frankly, matter more than your insignificant case? He gestured at the cheap furniture with visible disdain. You, of all people, don't get to dictate what is or isn't good enough, Mr. Mononobe. You're not in charge here. The FBI is. And you will remember that fact and be grateful for what information you've been given. Do I make myself clear? Whiskey leaned forward, about to snap back, when Passenger's voice cut in. Wait, what is he doing? Whiskey paused. Crane's eyes moved deliberately, first to the phone, then the lamp, then the vent. Since when, Passenger murmured, has he ever been this dramatic? Whiskey followed the glance. The room's bugged, he realized. He's being watched, but why? Passenger pulsed a shrug. Unclear, it said. but he clearly wants this subject dropped. Whiskey gave a small nod. "Crystal, Agent Crane," he said, rising. A flicker of relief crossed Crane's face before vanishing. "Good. Report with any findings." Whiskey placed his hat back on his head. "I like the new office, Agent Crane," he said with a wink. "Run down and misused. Fits you to a T." A shadow of a smile tugged at Crane's mouth, and he gave the faintest nod as Whiskey turned and strode out through the lobby, the rest of the building, then into the noisy street. Outside, the fog of the morning was a distant memory, burned away by the afternoon sun that did its best to warm against the sharp Pacific wind. But Whiskey hardly noticed. "Thoughts?" "The Bureau trains its people well," Passenger said. "Their auras are blocked, but their actions? Telling. They're tapping their own. Could be they're worried about infiltration." Whiskey frowned. "Infiltration by whom? Over what?" "Could be any number of things," Passenger said. "Things we don't even know exist. But Crane didn't want you in there." Whiskey sighed. "It changes nothing," he muttered, heading toward his car. "I need to find her. The biker gang's the key." "True," Passenger agreed. "So how do you get the intel fast enough to matter?" Whiskey furrowed his brow. "The best place to get that intel is still the Bureau database. And Crane said I can't touch it. But he's not omnipotent. There's got to be a workaround. Someone I can talk to. Someone who owes me a favor. Or at least someone I could buy one from." Passenger hummed. "Buy one, you say?" A slow smile spread across Whiskey's face. He did know someone. So, with one last breath, he climbed into the car and headed south toward the Mission District.
Thank you for listening to this episode of The Mythic Chronicles. The story continues every Tuesday and Thursday. If you're enjoying the journey, please consider rating and reviewing the podcast. Your words might help bring more mythics into the fold. To listen ahead, unlock bonus content, and gain access to VIP Discord roles and behind-the-scenes updates, check out our Patreon or visit us at SeanTLaffertyBooks.com. I'm Sean. Thanks again for being here.